discharge process, when the vessel arrives, it tenders in notice of readiness to the receiver or the importer. But before the cargo arrives, the cargo must have, or the importer must have a laycan. And when we say a laycan, a window or a period within which the cargo should come. And this laycan is planned together with the BDCs by the MPA. So at every point in time, the MPA knows that within this quarter, I am receiving diesel at this point in time, I'm receiving petrol, I'm receiving crude oil. That's how the planning is done. It's quite intriguing that when the Bloomberg journalist asked the boss of MPA and told him that, look, there is a vessel coming from this direction, and what do you make of it? He was clear that, look, when they come, we'll intercept and we'll block it. He couldn't tell them that, no, on our laycan, the only crude oil plant to come in at this moment is for Platon, and it's supposed to come from this direction. So one can really tell that today, this crude oil that we have received today is not part of the laycan. It's not planned to be received. But let's move away from that. So when the cargo comes and tenders notice of readiness to the importer or the receiver, it must come within the laycan period. Then, of course, a pre-berthing meeting needs to be held. But before the pre-berthing meeting, an inspector of quantity and quality has to be appointed by both parties, the seller and the buyer. There must be an agent to clear the cargo, just like every cargo is cleared from the port. Then, of course, if it's going to go into Temoya Refinery, Temoya Refinery staff or personalities have to be involved in this. They have to go aboard the vessel, take samples, and take measurements aboard the vessel so that they come and test it at the laboratory to see whether it meets our specification or the specification that the buyer gave to the seller. Then they come ashore and also measure the tank that the product will be received into. When all these things are done, they go to the pre-berthing meeting, and all the parties agree that this is the tank that we're going to receive into. This is the time that we are going to start the process. This is the time that the vessel is going to berth at either the jetty or the single-point mooring system. And they really plan how the process of discharge will be carried out. And so let me conclude this way. This is the way it goes. After the product has been received into the vessel, into the tank, the final measurements are taken offshore and onshore. That's the only time they can establish and reconcile the figures and establish the quantity
of the oil that's been discharged.
Quality and quantity certificates will be raised for both parties. Bill of lading is signed off. Then, of course, we will proceed to the payment of the cargo.
And I'm going to say thank you so much for this. And you know, we're going to keep an eye on this as well and how things play out in the coming days, because we have just received notice from our sources at TOR as well that some of the staff received notice very late of some oil that is going to be discharged. And so we're keeping an eye on this and how things play out. We'll definitely let our listeners know. That's Nana Mwesi the 7th, is the director of the Institute for Energy Security, IES, and this is how things are playing out, that government is being called upon to come clear on some 600,000 barrels of crude oil aboard MT Theseus. Now, what the NPA is saying in response to this is that this oil is not from Russia, but from Kazakhstan. This was after Bloomberg first reported this sometime last week. And so we have our sources at TOR also giving us notice that some 51, 54, and 71 tanks were prepped for the crude, but the notice was sent out late to staff at TOR, directing them of some 6,500 metric tons. So this is something that we're keeping an eye on, and we'll definitely be updating you, our listeners, on 3FM 92.7 on. But let's go to Nigeria, because as it's happened now, this hugely contentious vote may have ended in election of the All Progressive Congress's 70-year-old Bola Tinubu. But there are matters. Questions are being raised about the credibility of the elections and also the pockets of protest we have seen. Some opposition parties have indicated they're going to challenge the results at the Supreme Court. But what are the lessons for Ghana? Dr. Asa Asante is a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon Political Science Department. Dr. Asa Asante, thank you so much for joining us on Hot Edition. Now, you followed the elections in Nigeria quite closely and how things played out. Would you agree with those who raise questions about the conduct of the independent Nigerian Electoral Commission there?
Obviously, Alfred, thanks for the opportunity. Obviously, it's a concern because if you look at the report, the initial report by the European Union Observer Mission, two things were highlighted. That there was poor planning and poor communication. And obviously, you agree with them because if you look at the way things went in terms of logistics planning, it was poor. People go to polling stations, there were no electoral materials, right? The planning, which also dovetails into even security, which, was a problem, all right? Some countries have their, their rules that it's not the duty of the country, the electoral body to manage security and all that. For Nigeria, I must be honest, I don't know the laws regarding that. But security became a challenge because some voters were shot at, at the polling station. If you also look at the issue, they were one thing that really brought them down was the fact that they were not able to upload results, which was a major concern. Even if there was nothing untoward happening, that alone gave the people the opportunity to be suspicious of what was happening. So, by and large, you realize that the problems that we saw, a number of them could be attributed to them. They fell on their own dagger.
And clearly, what happens in Nigeria has its own spillover or ripple effect on Ghana. What are some of the takeaways for you that the electoral body in Ghana and the political parties should take from the outcome of these elections in Nigeria?
One is that when you look at what happened, it gives us, food for thought that, look, you need to plan and plan well. Right now we are talking about, how do we get, if we are going to go by given the latest CI and what it entails, it means that the only source document for the election will be the NIA card, all right, Ghana card. What it means is that we should be able to register everybody from now up to December. We should clear that 2.5 backlog, and then there will be 100,000 people whose cards have been, seized by people that the NIA is owing, all right. Once we are able to do this, then we can tell ourselves that we are battle ready for 2024. All right, we shouldn't wait till last minute that, next year, the first quarter, second quarter, then cards are coming, and then we are talking about this. That will take us to the land that we don't want to belong. The second issue is also that issue of violence in election. Last election, we saw it, and we've seen in Nigeria that it's gradually becoming a phenomenon in, African politics. We saw the shooting incident that claimed 8 lives. That today we are still, we have not said anything about it, and then it means that whatever happened, that has happened. That there shouldn't be a repeat of this on the soil. All right, that we are going for election and we have lost a soul. No, one is even bad enough. We don't want. It's a blot on our democracy, a blot on the democratic process. We don't want a repeat of that. Another lesson we can take is that, and that is for political parties, what lesson we can take is that you need to work hard, and working hard pays. One would have thought that given the fact that Nigeria is a typical two-party state like Ghana, that there's a typical two-party system in existence, APC and PDP, all right? The LP, the Labour Party, I knew from the one that they were not going to go anywhere, because if you are normally operating within a two-party system, all right, the chances of a third force emerging is 1 over billion.
It's interesting you make this point, because days or like 24 hours before that election, the Labour Party's candidate, Peter Obi, was the toast, at least the reactions on social media, that he was going to cause an upset, especially because he went into that election with the notion of upsetting the establishment. That is the two parties, APC and PDP. And that got a lot of appeal across social media, but we did not see that in reality.
Yeah, you get the appeal. After talk, people will talk, and it will be empty talk. The real action is how they walk the talk. Translating the talk into real issues is the difficulty. You see, when you have a two-party system where the two parties have been entrenched and they have been alternating power, all right, from one party to the other, a third force, existence is completely non-existent, right? Because the third party obviously have their roots in these traditional parties. So it will be so difficult. He was there, he relied on the fact that about 43% of Nigerian youth, Nigerian population is the youth population, translating to about 166 million Nigerians. So if you have a whole chunk of them supporting you, particularly you are seeing your engagement with them on social media. So you rest in the hope that it will, translate into votes. I'm afraid that's not an issue.
But Dr. Asante, we're talking about a Labour candidate who had a lot over 6.1 million of the total votes cast. That is not a flash in the pan.
Yes, I admit that is the numbers we are talking about. Is the one who crosses the finish line, the first person. That is all that we need. So you can even have about 80%, whatever. Were you the one who crossed the finish line? That is the crux of the matter. Any other consideration is secondary and not important. The important thing is the person who has crossed the finish line and was declared as a winner. One would have thought that APC would have lost the election simply because the same party is in power with Buhari. And now we have all the economic troubles, inflation troubles, security challenges, Boko Haram insurgents, and youth unemployment rising in amazing rapidity. All right. So one would have thought that all these things could be marshaled against the party that is in power, which Tinubu comes from, and it will go against him. But events took a different turn. You realize that his team, I'm talking about the Bola's team, worked very well and saw all the weaknesses and then developed messages that will, resonate with the electorate. That is how message development is about. All right. You look at what people will say against you and you develop antidote for that. And that's exactly what they did. If you look at his message, one of it was the fact that, look, I will be able to work well and then make sure that the youth unemployment, I will reduce it by half and so forth. This should be refreshing for the youth. And remember, he hails originally from, the north. He hails originally from the south, and he picked what a northern,
running mate or vice presidential candidate. Mm-hmm.
All right, and so in the south he was able to cause sensation. In the north he was able to, get a few things and then add up. And because he has been a Lagos State, mayor before, you saw. He proved his mettle there. Remember also, he has been an astute politician who is one of the richest in the country and who has been able to bring a lot of powerful people into the political system, including Buhari himself, and that is one of those people who held his hand into the party. Remember his work before 1999, where he was part of the pro-democracy group that really unraveled, Sani Abacha and all that. So If you look at all these dynamics, it will work well for him.
But Dr. Asante, you earlier also agree, and that's going to be finally, that the concerns against INEC's conduct of the elections have some legitimacy. And we've already seen concerns being raised about the conduct of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. The NDC yesterday about this CI to make the Ghana card the sole identity document for the continuous registration exercise. This is 22 months ahead of the election. How should the EC, as it were, learn lessons from the allegations of vote rigging against the INEC to conduct itself going into the elections that we have 22 months ahead of us?
Yeah, for election, if there's anything called election rigging, then it should be, controlled seriously by the political party. And here, the only medicine or the only cure is to be vigilant, right? They need to be vigilant and then put in what measures to counter any form of what rigging. I'm not sure we want to say that the EC has been engaging in rigging is the process itself. No, but we're saying that sometimes people have the opportunity to do certain things that are untoward and that undermine the electoral process. That, is a new call that the EC must be able to stand up and work with that. But if you look at what the EC said yesterday, I don't have a problem, provided that he said that we are not going to register anybody, we are not going to do fresh registration, no. But anybody who turns the age of 18, he will be going through the process. So the process is ongoing, then we are getting people. That, for me, is a starting point for every serious democracy. That we have a source document, that is one, that is what, security foolproof, and that, it can deal with some of the lingering challenges that we have. That every year you will see ghost names, you will see, minors and all that. Once you have a document like that, and then you begin to clean and add the new people in, that's the way out. My worry is that, are we able to get the 2.5 million Ghanaians registered? Are we going to get them registered before the time, far before the time, so that we don't have problems? And then those that we NIA owes, we are able to pay them. But yesterday, you and I got information from Parliament that government has shown goodwill that it's going to pay the money so that, the NIA will be able to carry out its mandate fully. Okay. Remember, Professor Peter has also assured us and that if he gets the resources, he can be able to put his team together, and within 11 days, he will be able to start his function effective. We hope and pray that everything goes well, so that by the time we get to even December this year, if we are able to finish all this process, we will be home and dry, and then everybody will be happy.
Dr. Asante, thank you very much for your thoughts on this. Appreciate it.
I'm grateful.
Dr. Asante is a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon Political Science Department. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It's some 18 minutes at the top of the hour. We're getting to business shortly. But if you just joined us, we've been talking about issues related to our foreign policy position, as President Kufuor is saying that we do not support great powers trampling on small nations. Words that, according to Professor Vladimir Chidanso, who joined us earlier, is a clear indication of a departure from our foreign policy position of being non-aligned on international matters. Also, a foreign registered vessel, MT Thesaurus, reportedly arrived at Tema Port last Friday with some 600,000 barrels of crude oil. The NPA has been hitting back, saying that this vessel is from Kazakhstan and not Russia. The Institute of Energy Security strongly believes that this indeed is from Russia, and they've been knocking on the doors of the NPA for some more answers to questions. This is after Bloomberg earlier reported this matter some few days ago. Also, we've been talking about the happenings in Nigeria after the declaration of Bola Tinubu as president-elect and questions about the credibility of that election process. Juliana Menuafo is standing by with all the news in the world of business. We're getting to business shortly here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also live on Facebook, it's at 3FM 927. Also on Twitter, it's at 3FM 927. Juliana, great evening to you. And what's happening in business?
So in business today, trading on Ghana's bond markets appears to have made some marginal appreciation last week following weeks of inactivity. Total turnover is said to have jumped by over 400% to 750.36 million following the beginning of trading of new bonds. But how significant is this? Courage Buti is with GCB Capital and he's been interacting with 3 Business.
Preceding week, that was just when the DDP was about closing, settlement wasn't done, and so generally activity was low on the market. So I do not think the level, about 136 million in bonds that traded within that week, is actually a reflection of what normally prevails on the market. So yes, 136 million traded in that week. And the week after, when the bonds eventually settled on the last week, Tuesday, and then thereafter you saw some activity on the market, the volumes picked up to about 754 million last week. So compared to the week that preceded it, that is about 454% change week on week. It sounds big if you look at it in terms of the percentage change week on week, but relative to the normal market momentum and how trade activities move along, I think 750 million pales in the shadow of what normally prevails in the market, where you see volumes in the 2 and 3 billion regions really on a weekly basis. And so I wouldn't say this is a rebound. Of course, relative to what happened the preceding week, it is an
Well, in more news, Ghana's Eurobonds extended declines on Wednesday, March 1, 2023, after the country missed a self-imposed deadline to restructure its bilateral debt, and S&P Global Ratings warned bondholders face larger losses than anticipated. The nation's 2032 dollar securities dropped 0.5% to 36.8 cents in the dollar in London, bringing their decline this week to 1.7%. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta wanted to reach a restructuring agreement with bilateral creditors by the end of February 2023 to help qualify for a $3 billion International Monetary Fund program. Also, away from that, fuel prices have dropped marginally at the pump, offering more relief to customers. Analysts have attributed the latest fall to slight decline in oil prices on the international market and not the government's Gold for Oil program, which is touted to help reduce fuel prices. The Institute for Energy Security forecasts fuel prices to drop further as oil stabilizes on the world markets and the cedi enjoys a good run against the dollar.
According to the energy think tank, the second pricing window of February 2023 saw a further decrease in oil prices, with gas oil dropping by 3.1% and LPG went up marginally. GOIL has since reduced its price, selling both diesel and petrol at a parity of 13 cedis 80 pesos. The Chamber of Petroleum Consumers has already predicted a 4% decline in pump prices. Research analyst with Institute for Energy Security, Adam Yakubu, has been providing more details about the price movement seen in the latest pricing window.
The IES projected that petroleum prices would either stabilize, flatten, or reduce marginally, that is petrol and diesel. Then you come to the domestic performance of our cedi, which has also, over the last 2 weeks, lost some 4% of its value, and closed the trading or the window period at about 12 cedis 88 pesos against the previous window's 12 cedis 30 pesos. But some OMCs have actually flattened the prices. That is, the price of diesel and the price of petrol coming to be the same, which is good for the consumer.
He, however, raised concerns about lack of transparency in government's Gold for Oil program, which is expected to offer some relief to consumers at the pump.
At the time we were doing the projection, the Gold for Oil program envelope, which government had indicated they had received about 675,000 metric tons. That's about 35,000 for diesel, for petrol, and 40,000 for diesel. We didn't have full facts in terms of how much it was bought, how much premium was charged, what was used to pay, was it paid for in dollars or was it paid for in gold? Because if you look at the framework, government communicated to the public through the NPA, Post, and the Bank of Ghana, you realize that they had two channels. So which channel was used? All that is important if we want to get a clearer picture of how that impacts the market.
And that was a report by my colleague Dela Michelle. Away from that, the Ghana Association of Bankers has pledged its determination to support women in entrepreneurship through the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa. The AFDB initiative, which was recently introduced in Ghana, will train and provide finance to Ghanaian banks with the aim of providing cheaper and flexible financing to women in business. Pakwesi Asari has more.
The Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, AFAWA, is a pan-African initiative to bridge the $42 billion financing gap facing women in Africa. The initiative, which has been spearheaded by the Africa Development Bank, aims to support women entrepreneurs in Africa. The program, which has already been rolled out in Tanzania, will now kick off in Ghana, starting with 2 days of training and capacity building for banks to understand the need to finance women in business and also come up with tailored products to suit the needs of women entrepreneurs. AFAWA, through its implementing agency, AGF, will provide finance and risk guarantee to women SMEs through local banks and also partner with policymakers to provide the enabling environment for women entrepreneurs to thrive through regulation. President of the Ghana Association of Banks, Johnny Wua, said the initiative has a potential of growing the economy.
Because impact financing is becoming a big thing for the financial system for all of us and globally. So as banks, we are also interested in what our lending activity go to, the activities that the money that we give also go to. And we know when women run businesses, how their outputs or revenues are used.
And that's how we end the business segment. Menu Afo, over to you now, Alfred.
Why do you always omit the Juliana? Everybody, I mean, I mentioned Juliana Menuafo, and you come and say Menuafo. Why? Because you're in Ghana, month, you are omitting the English names.
You know, you have to represent your local name. It's very ideal in this month, so thank you very much.
What an
Alfred.
escape for you. Ore Kwampofo. I know you have an English name.
Yeah, I don't have that luxury of omitting English names. So
I heard you're called
made
Cornelius.
in Ghana I'm called what?
Cornelius also.
Oh, no. Not at all. Ore Kunyameche Ampofu.
Ore Kunyameche.
Yeah.
Ampofu.
Yeah.
Nyameche.
Yeah, very heavy name.
Heavy name. Too much. What's happening in sports today?
Well, so, you know, it's been about 2 weeks since Chris Hughton was announced as head coach of the Black Stars, but Ghanaians have been patiently waiting for the unveiling of the former Newcastle coach. Ghana Football Association Director of Communications, Henry Asante Chum, explains the reason why his unveiling has delayed.
It's in Ghana, hopefully next week, if all things, you know, go according to plan. We are in constant engagement with him. We've spoken to him a number of times. I've personally spoken to him a number of times. We know exactly what is expected of us in terms of his unveiling, in terms of media engagement, in terms of the build-up to the games. Chris had to stay behind or stay a little longer in the UK because of some personal reasons. He lost his dad, and as a result, he needed to stay and have time with the family and prepare the burial service and all of that.
And so Chris Hughton is not in Ghana yet due to the fact that he lost his dad, but he's expected to be in the country next week where his unveiling would be made official. Speaking of making things official, we did hear of the news between, concerning Accra Heart of Oak and then Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Now the situation is that the league game happening this weekend between the two clubs would also serve as the President's Cup. There's news that hasn't been well received by the footballing fraternity, but public, the PRO of Gauka, that's Patrick Akoto, says that they had to resort to this decision due to the fixture congestion.
The decision to use the Super Clash as a form of the President's Cup is largely born out of fixture congestion. It's largely born out of fixture congestion. We looked at it. We had a conversation with our principal regulator, the Ghana Football Association, and there were two options available. Either we adopt this formula or we scrap it at all. And we do not think that we want to be inconsistent when it comes to the President's Cup.
Well, the President's Cup is this weekend, and Kumasi Asante Kotoko will head into that game full of confidence after beating Bichim United by 1-0. Goal scored by Enoch Morrison this afternoon. However, there's a big fixture this evening. It's the Manchester Derby between Great Olympics and Hartlepool. And let's quickly head to the Accra Sports Stadium where my colleague Kelvin Owusu-Ansah is stationed ready to cover the game. Kelvin, if you could just take us to what the atmosphere has been like. Are there fans at the stadium and what the lineups have been in just the next few seconds?
Well, thank you so much, Rico. And at the Accra Sports Stadium, I must say the numbers here of the spectators are not really appreciable. But at least for the few who have come, they are in high mood, especially when the team decided to come for the warm-up sessions. And for both Hartlepool and Olympic fans, they are just a few meters apart, sitting at one separate place, but trying to cheer their players on to the pitch when they were having the warm-up. They are still waiting for the arrival of the players for kickoff. But as you can see, for the team fans who are here, they are geared up for the game, and we expect a very crucial clash here at the Castle Stadium. For Hartlepool, they are going to miss the presence of Caleb Amankwa and Glaston Awako, the captain of the team, but they still have Salifu Ibrahim in charge. They still have Amankwa Besi and the rest of Beda Tosowa in there. For Great Olympics, Jindo Morishita, the Japanese, we have the Japanese community already seated here and are here to support. That is Jindo Morishita, though he's on the bench. But for Olympics, they still have their regulars, Razak Katim, and former Asante Kotoko right back, Christopher Neti, will be playing the game. So, as you can hear behind me, the noise and the euphoria here, the players are walking onto the pitch, and the game will start in the next 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Kelvin Owusu-Ansah, who is at the Accra Sports Stadium for the Manchester Derby tonight. Starts at 6 p.m. We'll bring you all the highlights and reactions that you need to know on our evening news bulletin at 7:40, and then when GPO Express comes your way much later today at 9:30 p.m.
Very good. Thank you. Wow. A lot to come up in the world of sports. But President Akufo-Addo is making another clarion call on Friends of Ghana to put in a word of support as talks between Ghana and the Paris Club, especially China, for debt cancellation enter a crucial stage. The Paris Club is a group of officials from major creditor countries whose role is to find coordinated and sustainable solutions to the payment difficulties experienced by debtor countries. Ghana hopes to appear before the International Monetary Fund Board to seek approval for a bailout. And Akufo is here for the world of entertainment news.
Hi, Alfred. Yeah, so coming up in entertainment tonight, if my wife wants to use our song for her campaign, she must pay. That's coming from Keche Andrew. And also Justin Bieber cancels all remaining Justice tour dates after Ramsey Hunt syndrome diagnosis. Now let's get straight to it. Keche Andrew, half of music duo Keche, has declared that his wife would be required to pay if she wishes to use their song for her campaign. Now, according to the singer, he would not let his politician wife use his songs for her campaign unless she's willing to pay. Now, Andrew explained that because he's a group member, his wife will need his permission before using any of their songs in her campaign. Now, he said, quote, "The song will fit her campaign, but we will take payments." Now, Keche Andrew's wife, Joanna Jan Kujo, will be contesting to be the Member of Parliament of Amenfi Central. A lot of people are reacting to that story, especially because, you know, Andrew did mention that the wife will have to pay before she gets to use their track on her campaign trail. I agree too. It will probably bring a little bit of fight at home, but business is business.
If it was a solo, maybe they can compromise.
I think so, but it's a duo, so he doesn't really have a choice. Well, elsewhere in the world, Justin Bieber has cancelled all of the remaining dates of his Justice World Tour following health issues. Now, the 29-year-old singer had postponed the tour several times, telling fans last summer that he was suffering from facial paralysis after a diagnosis of Ramsey Hunt syndrome RHS. Now, he said in September 2022 that he wanted to make his health a priority. The tour's official Twitter page has posted that ticket holders would automatically receive a refund, and that the Canadian had been scheduled to play shows in the US, Australia, and Europe, including a Manchester date originally planned for this Saturday, 4th March. However, some of his fans have previously expressed their dismay about not receiving refunds for postponed dates on the now scrapped tour, which has reportedly grossed $55 million. Now, no official reason has been given us yet for the cancellation, which leaves fans to assume it's due to his health. Now, before I end, let me share some fan reaction. So Kate Harper, 23, from Aberdeen, who got tickets in November 2021 as a Christmas gift from a family member, told BBC News, "I'm sad he has cancelled, but his health comes first, and I totally understand. I just wish he didn't say it was only postponed." Now, this would have been my second time seeing him, as I have already seen him in Glasgow for the Purpose Tour. So I was looking forward to seeing him in my hometown in Aberdeen. Now, Bieber took to a total breakdown from music in 2019 to focus on his mental health. And that's how we wrap up on entertainment on Hot Edition. My name is Akofa. Alfred.
Thank you. You know, mental health is key.
It's key. And then he also has the issue with the facial paralysis. Yeah. So a lot of his fans, even though they would love to see him in concert, are also keeping their fingers crossed that he does really take care of himself and come back stronger.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're back at 8 o'clock?
I am back.
To wind us down?
Oh, absolutely.
On the 1st of March. Wind down.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
Too much. The Electoral Commission finally has disclosed that it has initiated processes to develop a new constitutional instrument leading to the creation of a new constituency for the people of Santro Kofi, Akpafu, Likpe, and Lulobi, as the South traditional areas. It would be recalled that the Electoral Commission, through a release issued on the eve of the 2020 elections, caused the exclusion of Saul to vote and elect a member of parliament, although voters in the South traditional areas were allowed to vote in the Boem constituency for the presidential elections. They were directed by the Electoral Commission not to participate in the parliamentary elections. So as we speak, they are not represented in Parliament. Deputy Chair in charge of corporate services at the Electoral Commission, Dr. Bosman Erikasari, says the process has begun with the Office of the Attorney General. He spoke on a Accra-based radio station.
The LI creating that particular district. So the EC, and as we speak now, the EC is working with the AG's office to have a CI creating that particular constituency. You know, per our law, once a district is created, when you look at the law very well, a district can have 2 members of parliament. Like a place like, Cape Coast, the Cape Coast Metro. The Metro has 2 members of parliament, but a constituency cannot be in 2 districts. An MP cannot represent 2 districts. So when you say they should vote at Boem, that means the MP for Boem will also be representing, will be the same person representing the people of the Guan district. So that's not possible. Now, it has nothing to do with the district, but I know the local government law also says that 1 MP cannot represent 2 districts.
As Deputy Chair in charge of corporate services at the Electoral Commission, Dr. Bosman Asari, ending Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you for staying with us. Stay with us here on 3FM as Giovanni and DJ Dials continue with the drive. Join me at 10 p.m. for Hot Ghana Tonight on TV3 and also across all social media platforms. Have a great evening. I'm Alfred Ocansey.